Hey guys, what's up? Aru. So the Sub-Zerus festival just finished and it's pretty much clear that Tevat isn't real and Nahida is slowly unlocking the full potential of Irminsul, but that's not the topic I want to focus on. The main topic is the fact that this divine red bird is actually voiced now. If you don't know who Sorush is, she's basically a character from one of the world quests, particularly with the Harvest Token, which is this huge infected abyss tree. The location as well as her related quest focus on saving the party and cleansing the Vorokasha Oasis, along with some lore about the previous Hydro Archon. Pari are basically familiars of the Dendro Archon Ruka Kusanali, similar to Aranara, and the lore regarding their origins can be read from the Vorokasha's glow when the Goddess of Flowers gifted the Dendro Archon her pure and innocent daughter, the Kavarana, in preparation for the Cataclysm. And compared to non-voiced unique characters in the game, Sorush makes her return on Nahida's birthday along with two other characters that we also met in the same world quest. Fully voiced and perfectly captures her boasting, royal but also bratty personality.
I've had enough of these insufferable rascals, wreaking havoc in the desert right and left. Wake up, Rashnu! We need to teach them a lesson or we'll never get another good night's sleep.
I'll trap them with my thorns when they pass by, and you can take care of the rest.
Behold my might, brazen youth! Have you any idea to whom you speak? So you're not entirely ignorant after all. Fine, I'm willing to call it a day.
Now this is going to be a fun discussion about the growing possibility of voiced World Quest characters, which I know is a bit of a mundane topic to some of you, especially since the 5.2 special program just dropped. But making a video on the little changes like voicing NPCs in the game is always worth discussing in my opinion. Plus, I've always wanted to highlight the NPCs of Genshin. So as always, timestamps will be below for your favorite NPCs, and I suggest liking the video, subscribing, and hitting the bell if you're interested in more videos. Also, comment below if there's an NPC that I didn't mention that you would want to be voiced like Sorush. Now, let's get started. This isn't the first time a World Quest character gets their well-deserved voice acting within the game, and it's also likely that Sorush won't be the only NPC that gets a voice. I'm talking about you, Jeht. For as long as I can remember, the only World Quest character that got voiced in an event is Enjo, who I think is the Sinner Certology, but I digress. Enjo first came out in 2.4 Enkanomiya as a World Quest half antagonist and half supporting / main character. Go play Enkanomiya, you'll meet him the moment you get to the library, which is covered by ruin guards and abyss monsters. Quite a hint on who Enjo actually is right off the bat. Anyway, Enjo, much like most other NPCs, is expected to never show up again after his World Quest. But he makes a return in 2.5 as an event antagonist in the Three Realms Gateway offering, which was a big lore drop that nobody remembers since it was in Inazuma. Well, some of us do.
Oh, hey! I would say this is a nice surprise, but it's really not that surprising. Look at you, venturing out into the darkness, doggedly fighting your way through just to come and see me. Stop! Oh, my life is flashing before my eyes. I mean, I totally did betray them. Ooh, yikes. I think I'm all out of time here. I'd better go. I would say, see ya, but I probably won't.
Of which the lore in this event and the realms was mentioned by the Lord of the Night in Natlan today. But that's not the last time we've seen of him, since he also comes back in Natlan of all places during Kenichi's character quest, saving an abyss-infected Saurian, as well as looking into the biggest lore location since 1.0, the Mare Jivari. Not to mention, this guy also became the poster boy for White Day, which is Valentine's Day but for guys.
Wow, you are just irredeemable, aren't you? An agent of chaos down to the core. You make us Abyss Order folks look like saints in comparison. Two of my friends are on their way here, and, yeah, they'll help you out on my behalf. Work them like dogs, okay? That's what they're here for.
Huh? What are you two doing here?
Behavioral rehab isn't really our thing. Otherwise, we might as well change our name from the Abyss Order to the Abyss Boarding School.
The abysmal disorder would suit you better.
I could never beat you in a straight-up fight, but when it comes to running away, I won't lose to anyone. Do me a favor and remember how fast I disappear. Maybe then you'll show me a little respect next time.
Now, why do I have an entire segment talking about Enjo when this should be about Sorush getting a voice? Well, I already talked about Sorush for one thing, and actually this is more about NPCs finally getting a voice than just Sorush and Enjo. See, ever since Fontaine, I've noticed that the lore that we get from World Quest and artifacts have slowly been integrated into the main Archon quests. One example is the Kingdom of Remuria, mentioned during 5.1. Of course, the main topics are the twins, the Archon, the Fatui, and the Abyss, but it's good to see that world quests are also being mentioned in the main story. And now in Natlan, almost all character quests and world quest lore are related to the main story. This not only introduces the lore and world building of the game to newer players, but also makes the game more connected and alive in terms of storytelling, giving the very memorable NPCs in those unvoiced quests the spotlight with characters like Jeht, Liloupar, the Aranara, Fujin and Lingyuan, Yoroi if you could remember, the Narcissenkruez, and even the Hydro Prince Scylla, which I look forward to once he meets Neuvillette. The most recent and lore-hype storyline is Mary Anne, and Seymour as well as Mamere during the Narcissenkruez Ordo questline. In short, it's an interconnected bunch of quests with Anne, the little Oceanid, and her story about saving Princess Lyris, Mamere and Seymour's dealings with the Abyss transformed scientist Jacob Ingold, where we meet the origin of all Melusine Elinus, and Caterpillar, the Hilichurl in the fortress of Meropide. I'll leave the finer details out so you don't get too spoiled. But yeah, all of these characters might make a return since their histories tie quite well with the previous Hydro Archon, Egeria's rule before the Narcissenkruez, as well as the other establishments sank. And it might also give more lore about Egeria herself and maybe even meet or have left more messages for Furina and Focalor. Since Egeria created Focalor, which is an Oceanid, we can only hope that we get more info on her design and more lore about her through the remaining Narcissenkruez members. In terms of events, maybe meeting them again in the next Furina Awards and have them talk about their past Archon. Underneath the simple island of Petrichor lies the fell dragon Prince Scylla, looking quite similar to the Narwhal but without any Abyss origins. Scylla is involved in freeing the land of Remuria, along with Ossa, which we know is the cat possessed by Cassiodor. From what I can remember, only Scylla survives while Cassiodor no longer dwells within Ossa. Scylla is related to Neuvillette in terms that they are both Hydro dragons, or bishops, with the main difference being one is in dragon form and one is reborn in human form. I hazard a guess that they would look extremely alike in both facets. So having a Hydro Prince meet the Hydro Dragon would be quite an interesting event, and one that might even give us a new playable character in the form of a human Scylla. For the uninitiated, Jeht is an eremite that we meet in the desert of Sumeru. Her story starts out as a hired mercenary stuck in a sinkhole, meeting some shady eremite tribesmen who were dealing with the Fatui, as well as introducing info about her parents, followed by meeting some very unsavory but understandable characters as well as a pet robot, Ben. Her questline continues about her past, her parents, and her journey as an eremite with seemingly no real tribe to belong to, and goes on for 3 patches if I could remember, and is where Hoyo started these series-like quests. Many players within the Genshin community are very much enamored of Jeht and her character development, and Hoyo even made a poster tweet for Jeht, which I think was on Valentine's Day. So seeing Sorush in the Sub-Zerus festival relating to the goddess of flowers might mean that next time we can meet Jeht and the Eremites representing the Red King, King Deshret, in the next events. In one of my favorite areas, Chenyu Vale houses the Adeptus Fujin and the mythical beast Lingyuan, once serving a master of the Vale long ago, which we still have no clue who they are exactly. Both of them play their parts in saving Liyue by way of defecting to the Geo Archon Morax long ago. Along with the Herb Lord Changsheng, they both sided with humanity and the Archon when their master decided to flood the Vale during the Archon Wars. Lingyuan, on the other hand, chose neither side but decided to help humans from being killed by demons of the abyss by chasing them into cave shelters, and today they remain as Adepti in protecting the Vale in secret. But despite not meeting the Geo Archon himself, nor meeting the 3 remaining Great Peaks of Juyuan, both of these Adepti can still become playable at some point as they can easily transform into humans if they wish. But I don't think it would happen with Changsheng, since they would need to remove her from Baiju's model first. Next, we have Rana, the Aranara, and the fungal beasts that we've interacted with in the Aranara World Quest, which I'm sure some of you remember fondly, as well as in Nahida's character quest with Apep, the Dendro Dragon. Rana is part of the Aranara quest, which highlights protecting the forest from an abyssal infection known as Marana or the Withering. Rana sadly was stuck in a stasis bubble after protecting a bunch of stubborn kids who almost became the Taurus test subjects. And at the end of the quest, we fight a very peculiar looking abyss entity that looks like Natlan's Mimiflora, an abyssal mimic that copies the form of the ancient tree that it feeds on, Irminsul. Now, aside from Rana, which if you remember already got a vision at the end of the quest, I don't think that the Aranara would end up being voiced, as they make popping and whoosh noises, but they could sound similar to the fungal beasts of the Dendro Dragon, a pep. Now, Nahida already made the Aranara appear in front of adults, which for a long time only stuck to being seen by children, but I think it only happens with the help of Nahida's power, so we can only hope that they make another appearance at some point. Moving on, Liloupar is also a familiar and creation of the Goddess of Flowers, which follows a story that's related to Jeht's questline, a sort of connecting quest that's very similar to Fontaine's Narcissenkruez Ordo line. Liloupar's quest involves putting together her fragments and returning her to her children. Now, I don't think she'll be back anytime soon since she's currently in the buried city of Gurabad, but she did say that we'll meet again at some point, maybe in another Sub-Zerus festival, and who knows, maybe even come back in a different form. All of these notable characters, we can expect similar things to happen more often with the introduction of Sorush in the Sub-Zerus festival. Compared to Enjo, who is related to the Abyss, Pari and Aranara are Dendro familiars, and it's only right that they meet their Archon during Nahida's birthday. So who's to say that the descendants of all Amar's people like Jeht could come back as well? Or the yokai like Tengo, Onis, and Kitsunes popping up during the summer festival, the Windbloom festival, which could introduce the Favonius Knights, and Chenyu Vale, which is a perfect place for World Quest characters like Fujin and Lingyuan in the Lantern Rites. And the Farina Awards is also a great time for Scylla and the Narcissenkruez to meet the modern world and make a comeback too. Lastly, the Adventurers Guild with some notable characters like Zhixiong, which hasn't really been expanded as an organization, which if I could remember was founded in Snezhnaya, in short, more Catherine lore. But these events are all seasonal events, and usually only come once a year. But there are quite a few events already that give more lore and interesting stories that NPCs can also be a part of. Out of the non-seasonal events, we also have the pre-region release events, Timulanka, Valerian Mirage, and Golden Apple. Now, these events are already chock full of playable characters and new story-related ones, and even some hints to what may happen in the next region. From robot puppets to dreams to oceanids and prophecies, and now we have dragons traversing the sky as well as meeting creator deities. So there's quite a lot of hints to what's going to happen in Natlan if you haven't already noticed. But I think that World Quest NPCs are better off in other events, to avoid overshadowing or conflicting with the story of actual playable and more important characters. Case in point, we have the main events of each patch. Now, out of the numerous events that we've had, I could only point out a handful or two that would be a great place for World Quest NPCs to be part of and keep the game lively between patches. Three main events that I think would have worked perfectly with World Quest characters are the Unreconciled Stars, Parade of Providence, and the Hidden Strife event. These were back when actual lore drops of the game can be found in events as well, which I think where the lore FOMO came from. Now, I'm not saying to bring back the huge lore drops in event quests, but I'm saying to add World Quest characters as part of a simpler non-lore event. Ones like the Alchemy Ascension event where we meet characters and NPCs would be perfect events to reintroduce such memorable characters. Imagine an event similar to the Unreconciled Stars with very little or even no lore, but it's in Sumeru and Inazuma. But this time it's where Candace and Layla gets to meet Jeht and maybe investigate King Deshret's tombs. Jeht's knowledge from his father as well as her mother and the tribes would expand the Eremite lore along with highlighting the descendants of King Deshret's people, or meeting Savior and the Tanuki leader Ioroi to create another contraption in exploring Surumi Island, which we haven't seen in a while, very long while. Or maybe a Thelxie event with Remini again, but with Scylla swimming around to help, or taking part in another Sumeru race in the desert where Jeht and Ben can become friends with Candace at Aru Village. World Quest NPCs have always been the main characters of their quests, but having them take part in events to connect them to the main story of the game, not just as characters that we meet inside of stories, but as supporting characters or extra cameo characters that help flesh out the rest of the world of Teyvat, from desert eremites to scientists to adepti and dragon princes. All of these characters deserve to have a little bit of voice acting here and there, and I dare say it would be better than introducing a new NPC in the World Quest or events. Unless, the new NPCs are equally memorable. Of course, there are still some notable characters that we've met in events, but having them take part in it not only makes me happy as a lore enjoyer, but also gives a sense of familiarity and even drives players to get into the rest of the game's lore outside of Archon quests. And I think it also pairs perfectly with the recent streamlining of quests in Natlan. What started with a comedic NPC in some underground kingdom, becoming voiced in an event and then being part of the main story, now we have another World Quest bird that takes part in the Archon's birthday. Taking all of this into perspective, I think that Hoyo has plans to include more NPCs from World Quest into events in the future, and maybe even at some point be part of Archon quests as supporting characters that deal with their own stories alongside ours. But I've babbled enough about a simple insert of a red bird overshadowing an Archon's birthday already. For now, I'll see you guys in the next video, likely about the latest special program. Now, as always, like, comment, and subscribe to the bell for more of my ramblings, and stay mad, theorists. Bye!